Well, thank you, Vivek, for inviting me. I'm delighted to be a part of the program for mHealth and this wonderful opportunity for you all to convene and to enrich your own academic careers. As Vivek pointed out, I've been a member of the law faculty for some time. It's actually at this point 43 years and counting. My own field is Native American law, and that may seem to place me rather far from the work of mHealth. But today's topic is interdisciplinary research, which really opens up some possibilities for me to make connection with all of you. Because my own roots in interdisciplinary research run very deep. Okay, let's try it this way. There we go. All right. So when I first arrived at UCLA back in 1972, a law school colleague enlisted me to join something called the Lake Powell Research Project, which was a very bold endeavor. It was funded by something called Research Applied to National Needs within the National Science Foundation. And its charge was to assess the effects of the water resource management of the Lake Powell region of the Colorado River. Some of you may be familiar with it. The damming at Page, Arizona was pretty recent then. And we were looking both at the effects on the natural environment and on the native and non-native communities in that region. The project was interdisciplinary on a very grand scale. There were 9 universities who participated in this consortium, 26 senior scholars, equally divided between the natural and the social sciences. So it was very ambitious. It included biologists, atmospheric scientists, geochemists, anthropologists, political scientists, economists, lawyers such as myself, epidemiologists. The idea was that we would be able to tackle questions that in teams that we were unable to tackle individually within our disciplines. At one point, I was teamed up with a hydrologist, and the point of that teaming was to study consumptive water use of the Colorado River. I frankly, at that point in time, had no idea what a hydrologist was. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this collaboration produced over 100 research papers, including a very interesting study of how to manage such a massive interdisciplinary undertaking. So interdisciplinary research has a history. It has a history here at UCLA, among other institutions. But as my own career progressed, and I have to tell you, I never worked with a hydrologist again, not because of this particular hydrologist, just because my own interests took me in other directions. But I became more and more convinced that the real breakthroughs in my own area of law could only be achieved by breaking the bonds of the methodology of my own discipline and reaching out to empirical social sciences, which were really a separate matter from legal scholarship. For example, instead of endlessly critiquing court decisions and legislation based on precedent and first principles, which is what most legal research was doing at the time, why not, I asked, use empirical studies, both quantitative and qualitative, to ascertain whether those legal measures were actually having the intended goals or were they having unintended consequences. Instead of treating ideas such as tribal sovereignty, one of the central concepts in my field, solely as a legal concept, why not spend some time using archival and anthropological resources and research to understand how indigenous peoples have or have not pursued cultural and political sovereignty and autonomy? So I think you get the idea that the interdisciplinary approach was generating different kinds of questions and required different kinds of tools. As a consequence of reaching out in these new directions, I wound up being co-principal investigator with a UCLA professor of sociology on almost $2 million in grants from the National Institute of Justice within the U.S. Department of Justice to study criminal justice in Indian country, And you can see the book, one of the books that emerged from that research, which is this Capture Justice book, published with Dwayne Champagne, who serves on the sociology faculty here, and I suppose, full disclosure, is also my spouse. And that's an interesting topic, which I won't get into today, but that kind of collaboration raises challenges of entirely distinctive character. But as you can see, it did result in a fine publication. And in addition to that, the reaching out and asking new questions resulted in another book co-authored with an anthropologist at USC. We do that occasionally, not too often. But it was published by Yale University Press, looking at the history of indigenous efforts to achieve sovereignty within a particular tribe in Central California, the Tule River Indian tribe. By the way, law professors rarely publish monographs. This is not normally what law professors do. They publish legal research articles in law journals, which I will, again, in the interest of full disclosure, point out are not even, for the most part, peer-reviewed. They're edited by students, law students. But I did this, getting the grants, writing the university press monographs, really because I had broken the bonds of the strict approach of my own discipline. And I really became sold on the idea that these collaborations do spark new insights. They shift the research questions that are asked in new and very productive directions, and that the whole can unquestionably be greater than the sum of the two disciplinary, or even more than two disciplinary parts. So what I want to talk about next is what are some of the challenges to doing this kind of work, and they are not inconsiderable. And as I'm trying to point out in this rather simple presentation, we live in institutions that have long-standing and entrenched structures that are based on academic disciplines, and the orientations of those disciplines are shaped also by the outlets for publication, which have tended to be very disciplinary in their focus. I can't tell you how many times I see a tenure or promotion dossier that touts the fact that the candidate has published in the premier journal of the discipline. And so it's very much an orientation with that focus. Now, that said, I'm happy to say that there are some departmental changes that are taking place within our research university. We have a Department of World Arts and Cultures, dance, which includes choreographers, material anthropologists, ethnomusicologists. Very interesting. We have within the School of Engineering a Department of Bioengineering. Now, sometimes what this does is it shifts some of the disciplinary conflicts into the walls of the department rather than having them cross departmental lines. But it is an effort to break some of these structures down and to recreate structures that are more receptive and supportive of interdisciplinary work. I emphasize also, and this is something that really came to my attention serving on the Council on Academic Personnel, our campus-wide multidisciplinary body for reviewing important tenure and promotion and appointment cases for recommendations to me, Vice Chancellor. I did learn a lot from my colleagues in the sciences serving on that body about the preoccupation with the concept of independence and the celebration of the lone creative force, as I write it here. And these have been long-standing emphases within the academy. But I also have been able to observe some shift in that culture. I've spoken about the shift of the organization and structures, and I'll talk more about that. But there also has been a shift in the culture, and it's quite noticeable. First of all, an acknowledgement that the challenges facing the university and our individual scholars are more holistic. They're more complex intellectual challenges along the lines of what I was describing in my own personal odyssey. The difficulties and problems of the world today, and take your pick, whether it's climate change or hunger or whatever, these are not simple matters that can be addressed within a narrow framework, intellectually or otherwise. Furthermore, there are new kinds of pressures on the university, both from the public, which wants solutions to these problems, and from the funding agencies, some reflecting those public expectations, and some of them private sources. But the funders increasingly are responding to the nature of these complex and more holistic intellectual challenges. And I'll give you a very interesting recent experience of mine. I got a call from a faculty member in the School of Medicine asking if I would write a letter of support for a grant proposal. This is not normally something I get asked to do. But the faculty member was reaching out to me because this was a big science proposal from an agency that was expecting a major collaborative undertaking. And the funding agency wanted some affirmation from the institution that we supported, valued, recognized, rewarded that kind of collaborative undertaking. I don't think there's anything more powerful as an emblem of shifting culture than somebody in my position receiving a request of that type. So what are the institutional responses to these changes in the world of research? Well, one I've already mentioned, and that is a reshaping of the departmental structures themselves, but there are more. One is the creation of more joint and split appointments. Now, this is terminology specific to UCLA, but I'm sure the actual phenomena have their corresponding terms in other institutions. A split appointment is an appointment where someone truly has a divided set of tenure homes. Their tenure is partly in more than one department, which means that each of these departments participates as, in effect, an equal partner in the review of this individual's career. Now, in fact, one has to be designated the leader, or else it could fall into chaos, or simply nothing would happen. So there is one designated a leader, but they both have, in effect, equal say on the progress of this individual's career. And this person will have similar obligations to each department. Of course, what you have to make sure is that you don't wind up having double obligations. A joint appointment in our terminology is more of a courtesy appointment in another department. That is, your tenure home, your salary are entirely within your home department where you have your tenure, but this other department has acknowledged you as having an affiliation. Typically, this is done because you're participating in co-authored projects, or you're participating in symposia, or they feel as if your affiliation with the department will add luster to the operation. You may be cross-listing classes with that department, but typically under those circumstances, there is a waiver of personnel review so that all of your personnel responsibility is within your home department. So these are degrees of affiliation that you can have, both of which to different degrees will enhance your ability to establish interdisciplinary partnerships. Another institutional response, and this is one that UCLA has undertaken for 40 years or more, is to create, as a kind of overlay of the more siloed departments, research institutes and interdepartmental teaching programs that provide a vehicle of support for, in the case of research institutes, collaborative research, grant seeking. In the case of interdepartmental teaching programs, it may even support the creation of degree programs, be they minors, majors, graduate programs, that will allow you to attract students to work with you who have your shared cross-disciplinary interests. And these can be wonderful vehicles for carrying out work, but also creating those relationships with colleagues who may not be in your department. A third strategy that institutions can use to respond to this changing set of cultures and pressures is actual policy change. And I've been very concerned that we articulate policies at the highest level that demonstrate our support, because that is what will reinforce and direct the work of agencies such as departments that may not be naturally inclined to recognize and support. So one of the things I've been doing as Vice Chancellor is I have been encouraging our Council on Academic Personnel to write what I call interpretive guides that can be circulated to the campus to let them know how the general criteria for evaluation of scholarship and teaching are actually being applied on the ground. Vivek was absolutely correct in saying that we have this document, the call, that identifies the criteria, but invariably they are designed to be of a very general nature to encompass the entire campus. So these interpretive guides are there to provide greater specificity. And one of the first guides I asked the council to write about was on the concept of independence. And here's what they wrote. I'll excerpt just a bit of it. They said, independence is often misunderstood to mean that faculty must work alone. On the contrary, collaborative efforts are strongly encouraged and are becoming essential for the multidisciplinary, high-technology research that characterizes modern biomedical science. For instance, CAP, that's our council, recognizes that a faculty member's entire scholarly productivity may be as part of a collaborative team, in which case evidence of a unique and essential contribution is considered equivalent to independence. Should I repeat that? Evidence of a unique and essential contribution is considered equivalent to independence. In cases involving collaboration leading to co-authorship, reviewing units, that's departments, are expected to clearly identify, fully delineate, and specifically assess the specific intellectual and creative role of the candidate. By the way, this is all on our website, in case you're interested, on our Academic Personnel Office website. Supporting documents can include the candidate's self-assessment, the chair's letter, the ad hoc committee report. CAP emphasizes that only with professional clarifications that disaggregate and frame the candidate's contribution to collaborative projects, the council can fulfill its mandate to focus on the candidate's unique and essential achievements. Okay, and I'm almost done. So we also have other policies, formal policies in our call that underscore the importance of making an interdisciplinary assessment. What it says is that interdisciplinary activities are not to be treated as diversions from departmental duties, but as integral features of the candidate's contributions. The essential question that's under review is the quality of the work, not its adherence to the vision of a restricted departmental mission. Chairs and reviewers should be aware that it might be necessary and appropriate on occasion to call on the expertise of an extra departmental reviewer or committee member to adequately evaluate a candidate's dossier. And that gets to the next bullet point here about procedural policies. And we have a requirement here at UCLA that in every submission by a candidate for personnel review, they are asked to designate any interdisciplinary entities on the campus with which they have an affiliation, and then the department is obligated to reach out to that entity to solicit a letter of evaluation. So we are trying to make sure that the necessary raw material is there to make an appropriate evaluation. And then institutions can provide money, which is always a good thing. So this is the last slide here, and it's about what individuals can do apart from the institution. What can you do to create structures of support? Well, early on, clarify expectations with your department or departments, especially if you're going to have divided responsibilities or affiliations with interdepartmental institutes that are going to make claims on your time, or departmental teaching programs. Make sure the department understands and respects that and understands the nature of your work. Take advantage of all the opportunities to explain, particularly when you're given the opportunity in a personnel case to write a self-statement. How you characterize your role in collaborations is going to be very important. And if you can get your collaborators to support your characterization, always a helpful thing, that is good as well. And if it's not obvious from a disciplinary perspective what the significance of your work is, because you're asking questions that may be marginal as the marginal person, then you need to explain that as well. You've already heard from Vivek the importance of cultivating influential mentors. I want to add one point that is of some concern to me in the process, and that is that one risk of having a wide network of collaborators is that apart from independence as a researcher, there is also the matter of independence by those who evaluate you in the personnel process. And if all the people who know your work are also collaborating with you, that is going to raise questions on the part of reviewing agencies. So be sure that as you develop this network, that there are people who are doing perhaps work akin to yours, who are not your collaborators, who you keep a little distance from, so that they can be invoked to participate in your own personnel review down the road. And finally, when you're publishing work, seek out journals that are willing to help you in the process of clarifying the roles of collaborators. And there are some journals that do that more than others. Obviously, you can augment that, but when it appears in print, that is a benefit as well. So I'm going to see if there's any time left for questions. If not, I'm going to close this with, again, my appreciation for the opportunity to address you, and as well my appreciation for your willingness to do the reaching out, to ask the new and important questions that cannot always be addressed in a solely disciplinary fashion. Thank you.